So just coming in, if you were at a hip opener class last month, similar kind of thing. So we're going to come into butterfly just to sort of check in where the hips are today. So taking the soles of the feet and bringing them together in front of you. And then that distance between your groin and your heels can be any distance. If you've got your heel sort of slightly further to the front and this is a longer distance, that's going to feel it more in the hamstrings along the backs of the legs. And if you have your feet in a little bit closer, perhaps if your hips are naturally more open, you'll feel that a little bit more in the groin. And then just taking a grip of the ankles and taking a few flaps of the knees just to wake up into those hips, wake up into the groin. Just sort of see where things are. Some people sitting in this position, they have their knees all the way down to the ground. I know that some of the people I teach are right up here and can't actually get into that position. So just check in where you are today. And we're going to do some yin postures today. So quite a few of those we'll be holding for time, somewhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I'm just really trying to get into the deep layers of tissue and to the fascia, which is kind of the connective tissue which holds everything together, and get that stretch deep down. Fantastic. And then just maybe using your elbows to push down onto your shins and push your knees down a little bit more, and just folding a little bit forward here. So try and keep the back straight. Not too much pressure in the shoulders, but just feeling with a little bit of weight. You can come a little bit deeper in. Feel like you're lengthening through the crown of the head, nice and tall. And avoiding that slump in the lower back. Nice. Okay, so you've probably found your sort of maximum range for not warmed up. So we'll do some warming up and come back to it at the end and see what's happened. So sitting up here, we're going to take the soles of the feet to the ground in front of you. Probably, ideally, you've got the length of your shin between your feet, and then putting the hands just to the sides of your hips. And from here, with leaning back into your hands, we're just going to take some swipes from side to side. So taking both knees towards the right hand side. Your bum might pop off the ground at this point, that's fine. And then towards the left. So this is sort of coming into deer pose, also known as 90-90. But just taking that a little moment to warm up here with some movement. So one hip, one leg is externally rotating, and one is internally rotating. So getting that chance to go through 2 bits of movement here. Fantastic. Next time you find your legs coming over to the right, leave them where they are, flex into the feet, so you've got a nice 90 degree at the ankle, and then use your hands to walk you up. So the aim here is to have both sit bones in contact with the ground. So if that means your knees are popping up slightly, don't worry about that too much. And then actually, if you've got that book or that prop to hand and you'd like to prop up one of your knees for a second, then that's fine. And you can stay here on your fingertips. Or you can perhaps start to twist around towards the back of the room. Now, the way that the hips work is that if you have any issues with your knees, working the hips can quite often show itself as pain in the knees. So as you try to get stretch into one, it does put pressure in other parts of the leg. So if you have very tender knees or any kind of historical injuries, just go really carefully. Judge what's best for you. With every inhale, feel that you're growing a little bit taller through the spine. Notice where you feel sensations in your legs, in the hip. Perhaps coming around into the glute on that left side. Okay, we'll walk our hands back and body back around to the front. Find those props with your fingertips or your hands behind you, and then we'll switch the legs towards the left-hand side. So again, maybe a little shuffle, get both sit bones on the ground. It might mean one of your knees is popping up. If that's happy there, that's great. If you want to chuck something underneath to prop it, then please do. And then think about flexing into both of those feet. Again, sitting up tall here, you can have those hands as props, or you can start to walk yourself round over your left shoulder to face the back of the room. Keeping that nice contact through the sit bones. Sitting up tall. And then noticing that sensation around the right hip mainly. Really nice. 2 more deep breaths here. And then walking yourself back up to straight. Fantastic. A couple more of those swishes from side to side. So 2 each way. And then we'll come to stillness. We're going to move into tabletop on hands and knees. I'm just going to grab my mobile phone. It's not that I'm going to be rude, but some of these holds I'm going to time. So it'd be quite helpful if I've got a timer to do that. So finding hands and knees and coming into that kind of 4-point kneeling position. So making sure that the shoulders are stacked over the wrists and the hips over the knees. Shoulder width stance between the hands, hip width between the knees. Lovely. From here, we're just going to take a couple of cat-cows to warm up the spine. So as you inhale, dropping the belly, lifting the head and the chest forwards, looking up to maybe find the corners of your room where the wall meets the ceiling. Exhale, dropping the head, dropping the tailbone back, rounds out, and gaze comes to maybe down towards the knees. Inhale, cow. Drop the belly. Exhale, cat. Working in that real Halloween cat shape. Nice and round through the spine. One more of those. Inhaling up. Exhaling around. Nice. And then we're just going to take a few hip circles here. So just starting to work through, letting the hips come round. Maybe also working into the wrists a little bit. As big or as small as you like. Might be getting a few clunks and clicks from different parts of your body. So just be sensitive to what works today. Just get creative if you want to. So if you're sort of bending into the elbows or pushing up and down, whatever feels good, nobody is looking. There's another one of those dance like nobody is looking moments. Nice. And then switching directions, so circling the other way. Again, starting small, but then exploring whatever range of movement works for getting into your hips today. Just starting to move up in all of those directions. Really good. And then finding stillness in the center. We'll just do a couple of quick hip cranks here. So making sure you've got nice grounding through the hands, and grounding down into the right toes and the shin and the right knee. Going to lift up the left leg and just do some circles. So circling outwards, again, any size, no particular form, just work with what feels good. Again, might be a bit clunky and clicky. And then reversing the direction. So whichever way you've gone, moving the other way with that leg. Thinking back to our core last week and keeping stability through the body. So trying to keep that structure all the same. Just mobilizing this hip joint. Nice. Next exhale, sending the leg back to the ground. We'll just have a little push back to child very briefly, very briefly, and then come backing up to tabletop. And then we'll go again with the right leg. So just finding a circle with that hip, maintaining the structure through the left leg, both hands. Again, you can start small and go big. If you're feeling ready, just going for it. Trying to preserve that structure with the body. Nice, changing direction here. So rotate the other way. Lovely. Bringing the right leg down to the ground, and then we'll push back to child and spend a couple of moments here. So seat comes to the heels,
reaching the arms out in front, feeling grounded as your forehead comes to the ground. Brief moment of rest. Take a couple of deep breaths. Nice. On your next inhale, lifting the head, pushing back up to the tabletop position. So from here, we're going to take a bit of a lizard sequence, which in yin is called a dragon sequence. So grounding down through the hands, as you inhale, lifting up your left foot and bringing it to the outside of your left hand. So I'll come onto this angle for you so you can see. So left foot outside your left hand, which if I reverse is probably that way around. Fantastic. And then from here, thinking about pushing back that back knee a little bit to come down into a lunge. So what you should be finding is you've got a nice 90-degree stack of the front leg, knee facing forward, toes facing forward, and then pushing back the other leg to get as much stretch into the hip flexor as you can. I'm just staying here briefly for a moment on the hands. Nice. This might already be challenging enough already. So in yin, we work with this concept called the edge, and that's basically finding a place where you have sensation, and that's feeling something, that it's doing something, that there's a stretch there, but you're not moving into discomfort or pain. So hopefully wherever you are, just finding a place where there's a bit of resistance, feeling like you are doing something, but with no pain, no discomfort. Nice. And over these longer held stretches, you can feel that the tissues might start to soften. So after that 30-second mark, you're starting to get beyond the initial muscle stretch and then starting to come deeper into the connective tissues. Really good. A lot of big muscles surrounding the hips, so the glutes, hamstrings and quads, and lots of little bits in between. So those can often take most of the attention, but to get real mobility, we often have to get a little bit deeper, which takes a little bit of time. Fantastic. So from here, the next option, try it out gently. And if you've got any kind of knee injuries in terms of ligaments, then be really, really careful and back off if it hurts. What we're going to do now is come onto the blade of the left foot. So tilting the left knee out towards the left so that you come onto the left outside edge. That knee is now starting to wing out towards the side, which will intensify that sensation in the groin of the hip. If that gets too much, you're very welcome to come back to this. You're welcome to pull in the back leg a little bit so you've got a little bit more support and it's less painful on the, you don't want any pain, but it's less sensation on that other hip flexor too. So work going on in both hips here in this position. And this is called a winged dragon. So we'll take this for up to the 30-second mark. And then option will be to stay here or to go for the next variation. So keep breathing. And if you notice areas of tightness or areas of sensation, feel that you can send your breath there to help it. So with every exhale, feel like you're sort of pushing energy towards that place in the body, releasing tension. Nice. So again, option to stay here, option to back off, back to that straight position. Or if you'd like to come with me and try a little bit further, I'm going to take the weight into the right hand, left hand coming to the inside of the left thigh, and then just start to use that to push a little bit more to open up that left leg. So still on the blade of that foot, but now with that little extra bit of push there, coming in a bit deeper. If at any point this moves beyond sensation to discomfort or pain, please back off.
Your body, your practice, you're in control. And this can be quite intense. And I think as climbers, as athletes of any kind, I certainly had this when I was a rower as well. It's finding that point where you're not just toughing it out with yourself and being realistic about what sensations you're feeling. So really working with that. Nice. So from here, bringing that left hand down to the ground, starting to come back onto the full surface of the sole of that foot. And then from here, we can do an extra 30 seconds is optional. And if it's available to you, coming down towards your elbows. So kind of getting very deep into that lunge. And this might be possible now if you're really open. Otherwise, option to stay in the straight propped version or to come out totally entirely and find a child's pose. So up to you. But if it's not beyond your edge, I invite you to try the coming down to elbows version. And this will come really deeply into the groin on that left side and the hip flexor on the right. Check in with your breathing. If you're not breathing, if your breathing is going terribly, that's probably a sign that you're pushing it a little too hard. She says, you should have heard my recording a couple of weeks ago. I think I was hyperventilating most of the time. And again, sending that breath to the places where it can help. Nice. So if you've been down, very carefully coming back to the palms of your hands, pushing up. And then from here, just starting to scooch in the back knee. Very slowly, it's always hard to come out of these positions. And then we'll send ourselves back into a tabletop position. So taking that left knee back behind. And then just taking a couple of hip swishes from side to side just to push some of that out. So it's being quite strong. And then pushing back into that child's pose. So seat to heels, stretching out the arms in front, let the forehead come to the ground. And then with this deep fold here at the hip now, as a counter pose to having that big stretch just now. Really nice. Taking one more deep breath. Feeling the blood perhaps flowing around in those legs, in those hips. And then with the next inhale, lifting the head, coming back up to tabletop position. So from here, we're going to take the right foot to the outside of the right hand and go again on the other side. So setting up that lunge, checking that you've got a nice 90-degree stack of your knee and thigh. And then if you want a little bit more in the back leg, thinking about sending that back knee back a little bit further to come into that left hip flexor too. So from here in this structure, we'll take the first 30 seconds where we are. Again, just using this as your checking in time. It's always different on different sides. So really feeling what it's like on this side of the body. For me, my left leg is the naughty leg. So basically everything on the left leg hurts. I've broken that ankle twice. So the knee takes more strain, the hip takes more strain. That's all kind of on catch up. So I know that that is my worst side. But there will be all sorts of things that will have happened throughout your life that just mean it might feel different side to side. Really good. So now coming into that 30 seconds in point, it's probably, hopefully things are starting to relax now. Checking in with the rest of your body so that you're carrying minimum effort in the parts of the body that aren't being stretched. They're just there to help you hold the position. Nice. So we're going to take it into that winged position. So taking your attention to your right foot and then starting to tip out the right knee until you come onto the blade of the foot. So exposing the sole, intensifying that feeling. Again, if you've got any knee issues and your knees do not like twisting, then stay in that straight stacked position. It doesn't have to be the same on both sides. And just noticing where you feel the sensation here. So for me, it's strong in the sort of front groin, inner thigh. Some people pick it up a little bit more in the glute. It'll be very different for different people depending on where they are open and closed. And just starting to find that space here as you open up the body. And just visualizing ahead for the next stage. That will be taking the weight into the left hand, lifting up the right hand and taking it to that right inner thigh, and then just using that to get a little bit more pressure to move outwards. Again, this can be really strong, so back off anytime you need to. And you can always return to that straight stack, more of a kind of low lunge position. Seeing how that sensation feels. So in terms of Eastern philosophy, the idea is that you carry quite a lot of your, issues in your tissues. So the hips can become a place in the body where quite a lot of emotions get stuck. So I will advise you now that if you're feeling emotional, that's absolutely fine. And if you need to take a little time out at any point, please do. Nice. So coming towards the end of this stage now. So very carefully putting the hand back to the ground, sole of the foot comes in, knee comes in to find that straight stack again. And then option to stay here for the last 30 seconds or option to use that space you've created to come down towards the elbows. Checking in on that knee. And again, trying to find that position where, apart from the tissues that are being stretched, everything else in your body is doing minimal work. So the structures are stacked to support you. And then use the breath to find some opening here. Really nice. Last 10 seconds. I'm just thinking about how you're going to move out of the pose. So bringing the hands to the floor, very carefully, mindfully pushing up. Scooching the back knee in a tiny bit. And then sending the leg back to find that tabletop position. Again, taking a bit of a swish or some circles or whatever you need to kind of free out that sensation. And then just pushing back to child's pose again. Take the pressure off, walk the arms forward, and enjoy that stretch out. And then we've got one more strong pose here on the ground. And then we will just head up to standing briefly. So nice deep breath. Next inhale, lifting the head, coming back to hands and knees. So we're going to find a frog pose, which I'll show you from a couple of angles. So from the tabletop position, essentially what we're doing is walking both knees, preserving the structure here. So you want this nice 90 degrees still, but you're walking out both knees to the sides to then bring your hips closer to the ground. So what we'll be looking for ultimately is the bum still to be stacked in line with the knees. You can have your heels in a tiny little bit to find those kind of breaststroke frog legs, or you can flex your toes out, find out what's best for your knees, and then gradually moving yourself to the ground. So you'll probably find a limit with your legs, and they may be okay on your hands here, or you may feel that you can drop down to your elbows. So I'll just move to show you that from the front. It's relatively awkward. So again, moving those legs out towards the sides and then dropping down. And then just settling in to find a place where that works for you. Again, if you want to find that edge, this is quite a strong position if you go to your limit anyway. We'll hold for 30 seconds here and then see if anybody wants to go any deeper. But very intense sensations in the groin, external rotation of the hips here. This is a good one if you're warmed up and just kind of doing stretches while watching Netflix. You can kind of get into your Netflix position and just watch. If you go on Molly Thompson-Smith's Instagram, she's doing that quite a few times, apart from her bum is right down to the ground because she's got very open hips. So that's the goal. Nice. So again, approaching this 30 seconds, if you want to back off, so bring your knees in a bit closer, please do. If you feel you've got a little bit more and want to walk your legs out further to get more stretch into that groin, that is now an option. And something you might also like to do is experiment with pushing your bum back slightly closer towards your heels, so going more than 90 degrees, closing up that angle. That can just take the stretch to a slightly different place in your groin. Again, nothing else should be feeling this apart from those areas around the hips. So any pain in the knees, anywhere else, again, please back off, find a child's pose. Take a little rest. Just 3 more breaths here. Again, over time, as this becomes something that gets ingrained into your body, it will help with your frogging, keeping your hips close to the wall, which is something can be very helpful. And that big dragon sequence we just did is really helpful for those kind of high steps where you need to bring your toes up higher, and the kind of rock over moves as well. Okay, this is a really difficult pose to get out of, especially if you've been right on that edge. So think about if you're on your elbows, pushing yourself back up very carefully towards your hands, keeping a little bend in the elbows. And then what I would probably advise to do is to bring in your heels a little bit closer towards each other, and then just gradually use those to shift your knees in, walking back in to find that tabletop position. So take it really slowly. You've been in a really big stretch, it can be kind of sore to come out. And then one last time, finding some kind of circling in the hips, just pushing out some of that intense sensation. Nice. And then we're going to take it up to downward facing dog. So I'll let you tuck the toes and then send the seat up towards the ceiling. I'm just going to move my computer so you can see me as we stand. Fab. So in downward facing dog, just really walking into those legs. So taking this option to alternately lift and push the heels to the ground, maybe keeping a little bit of looseness through the elbows and getting that kind of animal type 4-legged walk going on there as well. And then once you feel like you've opened up enough there, pushing into the hands, pushing into the feet, sending the chest towards the thighs and finding stillness. So just before we have a little bit of a look at a quick standing sequence, just going to return to those hip cranks that we were doing in the tabletop position, but we'll do it in this downward facing dog structure. You're really grounding through the hands, grounding through the right foot. Think about lifting up the left leg, nice and straight behind you. 3-legged dog. It can be anywhere for your 3-legged dog, so wherever feels right. Then bend that knee and then just start to do some hip cranks. Doesn't matter what direction, we will do both. But try to maintain the structure, that nice A-frame with the arms and the right leg, while you circle the left hip.
Change direction, so circling the other way. Nice. And then keep breathing. Lovely. Left foot comes down to the ground, pushing just back, so lift that sit bone towards the ceiling. And then grounding down through the left leg, we'll extend out the right leg behind. So floating out to wherever it goes. You might be not very far up, you might be doing the splits in the sky. Reaching out through that right heel. Then bending the right knee, finding a circle, any direction. And again, just cranking through that hip. Nice, change direction. The added benefit of doing this from downward facing dog is that you're getting a really good stretch through the calf of whichever is your standing leg. Really nice. And then returning that foot to the ground. From here, we're going to move forwards to a kind of warrior two framework. So thinking about looking between the hands, I'm going to take the right foot in between the hands. So either in one go or in a few pieces, send your right foot between your hands at the front of the mat. And then from here, look to your left foot. So we're going to drop in the left heel. So the back foot, the left foot comes to a kind of 45-degree angle. So right foot's pointing towards the front of the mat, left foot's kind of pointing out towards 45 degrees. Nice. And then from here, really locking on with that core, keeping the legs stable, keeping that nice bend in the front knee, thinking about pushing up and cartwheeling open with the arms for that warrior two position. So aiming for knee to be tracking in the direction of the toes. So make sure it's not turning in or turning out, because that will give you some knee injuries. And coming down nice and low. Thinking about the back of the left foot, so the little toe side of the left foot, making sure that those toes are pressing in as well. And the hips are now open towards the side, both facing in the same direction. Nice. So inhale here. Exhale, flipping the left palm, cartwheeling down towards the left. So left hand finds the back of your left leg, and right arm reaching over the body for a side stretch. Reverse warrior. Again, lower half of the body is totally stayed the same. Nice. Hips nice and open towards the side. Beautiful. Inhale, coming back up, palms face down, finding that warrior two position. Checking in with that front knee, not twisting off to either side. It's not rotating in or out, but facing over your middle toe. Fantastic. Exhale, we're going to take the right elbow down to the right thigh, and then send the left arm reaching out in a diagonal. So there'll be one long line of energy coming through from your left little toe to your left middle finger. Nice. Again, feel like your hips are still staying open towards that side. So if you're feeling that the left side of your body is being pulled down, make sure you're bringing that shoulder and that hip open. We are opening towards the side. Fab. If you're feeling flexible or fancy, and the option is always you can stay here, but if you're feeling flexible or fancy, you could try taking the right hand down to the inside edge of the right foot. So from knee to that inside edge. Again, that will be a little bit more challenging to keep this hip open because it will want to pull down. So try and maintain that structure. And keep breathing in this side angle position. Nice. If you have super open shoulders and you're feeling even more flexible and fancy, then the final option is to send your right arm underneath your right thigh, left arm behind the back, and to find a bind there. But remember, the intention is to keep open the left shoulder, the left hip. So if that's drawing you up too much, then return to one of the other variations. So either that one or that one. Fantastic. One more breath. And then from wherever you are, we will inhale back up to warrior two. So structure of the lower body stays the same. Probably getting a little bit of burning in the thighs now. So you have now got permission to straighten that front leg. Whew. We're going to turn the toes towards the long side of the mat. So feet are now parallel, and just take a fold here. So hands come to the waist. Think Lego person. And then as you exhale, letting the body tip over, hinging at the hips, coming down towards the ground. Again, another nice opening for the hips here. So your hands may reach the ground. You may be dangling, holding opposite elbows, whatever feels good. And then you can either stay static or just take a little bit of a rock from side to side. Think about making sure that you have weight in your toes as well as in your heels, so that you're not taking a backward stance. And then that fold, feeling that you're getting real flexion at the hips as your body comes towards your thighs. Lovely. 2 more breaths. And then from here, we're going to set up for that warrior two sequence towards the other side. So taking your fingertips towards the ground, take a halfway lift. So you're being propped up, and then we'll just look to the feet. So the left foot is going to turn out towards the short edge of the mat in the other direction. And then walk around your hands towards that left foot and tipping your right foot in 45 degrees. So warrior two legs setting up on the other side. Left toe straight, right toes 45 degrees. Take your hands either side. You might be on your fingertips of your left foot, and then start to put that bend into the front knee. Nice. So from here, fire up that core. We're going to cartwheel up, pushing into the feet, finding that warrior two position. You might have to play with your length a little bit, so you might need to lengthen your stance. Thinking about sending that lower body down. Again, checking that that front knee, the left knee this time, is tracking over the toes, not twisting in or out. Body is nice and straight. Really good. If this feels too strong at any time, you can narrow your leg position, stand up a little bit more and put less bend in the knee. Think about those hips being, if I were to put head torches on both of them, they'd both be pointing straight out from that side. Nice. Flipping the right hand, palm upwards, and then tilting down towards the back. So right arm finds right leg, left arm stretching over the body for a side stretch. Despite the fact that the upper body is moving, the hips are still open towards that side. So when we're climbing, we're often trying to keep as close to the rock as possible. And it's being able to keep your hips open in the direction of the rock whilst doing lots of different things with your upper body. And then adding a bit of weight transfer as well. Looking really nice. Inhaling. Again, lock the lower body, coming back up to straight. Warrior two. From here, just check your shoulders. They're not up by your ears, but relax them down. Stretching out from fingertip to fingertip. Looking good. We're going to take it to that extended side angle. So bending down the left elbow to find the left thigh, stretching over with the right arm, finding that long line of energy from the right little toes to the right middle finger. And again, push down with the right little toe side. Make sure that you're getting good pressure through all of that foot as the base. And again, we'll spend a few breaths in this position, Thinking about making sure that the right side doesn't collapse down. So sending that right shoulder open, opening up that right hip all towards this side as you're in that really stretched sideways position. Perhaps going for that rock over or that cross through. Option here to drop the left hand down to the floor inside the left foot. Check what that does to your hips. And then if you are feeling open again, always the option to thread the left arm underneath the left thigh, right arm comes behind for a bind. Again, the intention of the posture is to keep the hips open, the chest open. So if that's compromising, go back to either step 2 or step 1. It's all about the hips. Check that you're breathing. Nice. Then we'll do 2 more breaths here, and then I'll let you release that thigh. Nice. Okay, locking in that lower body exactly where it is, fire on the core. We're going to come back up to warrior 2. So disconnecting the arm from wherever you are. Arms reach out straight and straighten the front leg. We're going to take the wide-legged forward fold once again. So turning the toes towards the long edge of the mat, parallel with each other. Or if you feel you want a little bit more of a stretch, you could pigeon toe in a bit, so tuck your toes in a tiny bit. That will bring it more into the hamstrings as well. Hands to the hips. And then when you're ready, exhale, folding downwards. Again, you know where this is from last time, so let the head hang. Either grab the opposite elbows, maybe fingertips on the ground. And then either with stillness or a little bit of a wiggle, thinking about pulsing the chest towards the thighs, working on that flexion in the hips. They've been really opened in the other direction. So we'll have some flexion here. Nice. And then finding stillness. Hands come to the ground from wherever you are, or fingertips to the ground. Pressing up towards that straight back, so straight torso. And then from here, hands to the hips. And then we'll use the core, checking in on last week, to inhale, lift the body all the way up to one straight line. Lovely. So we'll come down to seated from here. So bringing the feet in to probably over hip width apart, depending on your stance, so maybe mat width apart, toes pointing out slightly. And we'll take it down through a squat. So either with your hands to heart center or something else, but hands to heart center is usually the easiest way. Bending the knees, sending the sit bones towards the ground, and coming into a squat hover. You can connect the outsides of the upper arms to the insides of the knees, kind of for that push apart. And then you can either just stay here for a little bit, or you can feel like you can move from lifting the heel of one foot to the other foot. Just move that around a little bit. Whatever feels like you're either getting the most opening or the most work. It's probably stronger to stay in one place, but you're probably working a little bit more flexibly to move this way. And then wherever you've got to, just doing that for a couple more seconds. Nice. And then very gracefully sending the bum to the floor. And we're going to come into a seat. So if you've got your book or your small pillow or something, just grab it here. We're going to do a pose called square pose, which is quite an intense opening. So check that your seat bones are nicely grounded. What I'd like you to do is take your right leg in front of you and bring it to sort of a 90 degrees. So if you're sitting aligned with your mat, it should be your shin aligned with your mat, flexing through that front foot.
And then what we're going to do is take the other leg on top. So left leg's going to come on top, and then the left ankle is going to stack over the knee, and the knee is going to stack over the ankle. So bringing that over the top. As you can see, I've got quite a gap here. So this is the bit where whatever you've got will come in. Wedge that into the gap to give yourself some support. This is quite an intense hip opener. Again, make sure that your sit bones are grounded. You can keep your hands on the ground to give you some support. And you'll be feeling this quite deeply into your groin. If you've got any knee issues, then I would advise you probably move back to that butterfly position we started in earlier and have a little bit less pressure. But just one final seated pose with quite an intense opening of the hips here. Again, if you aspire to something like a full lotus position, this is a really good training for that. Because you're getting a little bit of rotation, but also that opening. And then breathe. So again, check in. Sensation, yes. Discomfort and pain, no. So be judicious. Work out what's working in your body today. All of these things take a bit of time. It's either time in the posture or sort of time over a number of weeks to start really working into those deeper tissues. So it's not only getting the muscles to stretch and the fibers to build, but it's also getting down into that deeper connective tissue. So now that we've been in this for a little bit, if you're practicing this at home and you want to take it the next step further, then you can walk your hands out in front of you and start to fold over your legs. But in terms of time today, we'll swap to the other side. So removing any prop that you've got, perhaps using your hands to help up that top leg, putting the sole on the ground, or very briefly put the other sole on the ground and just take that little windscreen wipe from side to side that we did in a minor way earlier. And then we'll send the left leg down. So shin is parallel with the top of the mat, flexing through that left ankle. And then bringing your right leg on top. So knee on top of ankle, ankle on top of knee. And again, wedging whatever appropriate size in that gap, just to give you some support. Check the sit bones are connected. Sitting up tall, keeping the flex in the feet, and breathe. So weirdly on this one, this side, I feel a stronger sensation, but my gap between my knees is a lot less. So I'm having to prop it a lot less. I offer you that as an observation without much judgment behind it, but just getting used to your own body and noticing if one side needs opening a little bit more. Fantastic. So this is our last pose. Thinking about that deeper work that we've been doing today. And again, these are quite a few of these yin postures, the dragon, this square pose, frog. They're all quite good for watching TV or reading or something like that if you are sad enough to want to open your hips while doing something else. And actually, once the gym's open again, sort of those crash mats are quite a nice environment for doing these in a well-padded space. Now it's coming up to the last 10 seconds here. So just visualizing your exit. And then thinking about pulling out any props that you've got. Perhaps using the hands to lift that leg up. We'll put the soles of both feet on the ground. And then take that final swish from side to side. Don't worry about what your sit bones here are doing. It's just enjoying that rotation internally and externally. Just pushing something out of the system. Fabulous. So we'll finish as we began in butterfly position, just to see if anything has changed. So taking the soles of the feet together. Again, trying to pick the same distance of feet from groin that you had last time, grabbing hold of the outside of the ankles, and then just sitting up tall. And then feeling like your knees can come down towards the ground. For me, I've probably gained a couple of inches closer to the ground over the course of that 45 minutes. Hope things are feeling a little bit more open for you too, but quite nice to have those diagnostics at either end. So thank you very much for coming today. If anybody has got any questions, then please do ask.